Okay. Hi. This is my final project for critical thinking in the social world. Today I'm going to walk you through why critical thinking is important, what it actually is, the tools I've learned this semester, and how this class has changed me in my everyday life. So, in this presentation, I will talk about why critical thinking is important, what critical thinking is, the tools a critical thinker needs to develop, and how one goes about critically thinking in their life. So, critical thinking is important because it can improve our happiness, physical and mental health, employability, safety, relationships, quality of learning, society, and financial well being. Critical thinking is one of the many factors that play a role in environmental factors, genetics, life events, and other influences that are highly significant. Critical thinking must be practiced and applied to various areas of life to see benefits. So basically, just passively knowing how to critically think will not help you. Critical thinking matters because it helps us slow down, question assumptions, and make better decisions. Instead of reacting quickly or going on autopilot, critical thinking helps us think intentionally. It also helps us communicate better, solve problems more effectively, and understand other people's perspectives. This class showed me that critical thinking isn't something you're born with, it's something that you have to practice on a daily basis. What is critical thinking? So, the dictionary definition of critical thinking is the act or practice of thinking critically, obviously, as by applying reason and questioning assumptions in order to solve problems and evaluate information. But through this class, I discovered that it is so much more and applies to nearly every single aspect of life. I'm extremely happy this class gave me the opportunity to improve myself through critical thinking. In this class, we learned that critical thinking means being aware of how we think, why we think that way, and what influences our thinking. It's about analyzing information, noticing our biases, asking good questions, and being open to changing our mind. Critical thinking is both a mindset and a skill set, and this course taught me how to develop both. The tools a critical thinker needs to develop. One thing I've learned from this course is that a critical thinker needs to develop mindfulness. This was one of the first big concepts that we learned. Mindfulness means paying attention to the present moment instead of operating on autopilot. For me, mindfulness helped me catch myself when I was zoning out, getting distracted, or scrolling on my phone without thinking. It taught me to pause before reacting and to be fully present in conversations, which made me a much better listener. The next is curiosity. So curiosity was another major tool that we developed. Curiosity means asking deeper questions instead of accepting the first answer that comes to mind. This class pushed me to get more curious about people, ideas, and situations. Instead of assuming I know something, I now ask why or what else could be happening. Curiosity helped me become more open-minded and way less judgmental. Next was focus. So we learned about focus and how easily it gets broken by distractions, especially for me, I know it was my phone. I realized how often I split my attention without even noticing. Through this class, I learned to remove distractions, set boundaries with my phone, and actually focus on one thing at a time. This made me more productive and more aware of how my habits shape my thinking. Next, we have student-directed learning. So this, to me, basically means taking responsibility for your own learning instead of waiting for somebody else to motivate you. And this class encouraged us to be active listeners, to ask questions, explore topics that interest us, and reflect on our own thinking. So this helped me become more independent and more engaged on my own growth. Next was motivation. We talked about motivation, and I learned that it really helps when you're motivated and mindful, because when you're motivated, at least for me, I just realized that it's really helped me not procrastinate as much. Then we have mental models. So I thought mental models were one of the most interesting concepts this semester. So basically, a mental model is basically the lens we use to understand the world. We all have different mental models based on our upbringing, culture, experiences, and habits. This class helped me notice when my mental models were limiting me or when I needed to challenge them. Understanding mental models helped me think more flexibly and to see situations from new angles. Then we have the fixed and growth mindset. So we learned about having a fixed versus growth mindset. A fixed mindset believes that abilities are permanent, like you're either good or something or you're not. And a growth mindset believes that skills can improve with effort or practice. This class shifted me toward a growth mindset. I stopped saying things like, I can't do that, and started saying things like, it'll just take me time, but I can learn this. It made a huge difference on how I approach challenges. Next is information literacy. So basically, this means being able to find reliable information, evaluate sources, and question where information comes from. I know we talked about this in class, but in a world of social media bias and misinformation, this skill is way more important than ever. This class helped me slow down and think critically about what I see out online, who created it, and why. How one goes about critically thinking in their life. In order to be an active critical thinker, you need to be able to identify and analyze how to restructure our assumptions and mental models based on practices of humility, open-mindedness, and information assessment in consideration of cognitive barriers and limitations. You have to be able to identify our thinking. It is very important that you are aware of the fact that we can hunt for assumptions and recognize the fact that we have deeply held beliefs that we accept as a fact that some people may not have even considered. So for this presentation, I decided to interview my mom and just ask if she noticed any differences in how I've been acting from the beginning of the semester up until now, which is the end of semester. So when I asked my mom if she noticed any differences with me throughout the semester, she said that I seemed way more present. She said she noticed a shift in the way I approach things and that I was not quick to do things I used to do. She said the biggest difference is how much more present and attentive I've become. She mentioned that I actually listen now without interrupting and that I ask deeper, more thoughtful questions instead of rushing through conversations. She told me the biggest difference she noticed is that I'm way more present and attentive. She said I listen intentionally without interrupting and that I ask deeper questions instead of rushing through conversations. She also said I'm on my phone less and more engaged with the people around me. Overall, she said I seemed way more curious, open-minded, and reflective, and she can tell that I'm really trying to understand things instead of reacting right away. So especially with this, I know that I talked about it one day in class, that I think it was the week of focus. I really tried to be more active with my mom because I realized I really don't call her that much at college just because I'm really busy. And through focus, I was able to just give my mom my complete attention, and we actually wound up having a very deep and meaningful conversation. What I learned about myself. Throughout this class, I learned that everybody's path is different. Weekly discussions on the journals really opened my eyes to the fact that although we are all completing the same journal, that we are all doing it differently and that each person was going through their own things. It was so interesting to hear how other people went about their week while practicing critical thinking skills. How I've personally grown. One skill that I especially enjoyed practicing was focus. Like I said before, I typically have a really hard time paying attention for an extended period of time. My phone has clearly shortened my attention span, and while this is something I have been trying to fix, I was especially happy to practice it for a class. I understood the impact of tech distractions and how I cannot efficiently multitask in the presence of my phone. I was able to set goals for myself, so for instance, I would try to do my work for 30 minutes without going on my phone, and every time I completed the goal, I would increase the amount of time I would be able to spend on my phone. So that seemed to really work for me. I think it was just because I knew that there was a sort of reward at the end. I also enjoyed practicing how to not hunt for assumptions. It was really eye-opening to fully grasp the fact that not everyone has the same beliefs. What I think should happen in a particular situation is not what other people think all the time. I really enjoyed learning about paradigmatic assumptions versus prescriptive assumptions and how paradigmatic assumptions are deep-seated worldviews, beliefs about how the world fundamentally works, while prescriptive assumptions are about what should happen in specific situations, guiding actions and policies. From my own perspective, I've noticed a lot of growth, not just from what my mother said, but I've learned to be an active listener instead of a distracted one. I've gotten way better at taking breaks from my phone and actually being present. I've become more curious about people and more open-minded in general. I've learned to pause, reflect, and think before reacting. And honestly, I can easily say that these changes have helped me communicate better and feel more grounded in my everyday life. Skills I gained. I can easily say that this class has helped me become a better listener, a more curious person, someone with improved focus, and someone with more empathy. I now use critical thinking in my daily routines. I pause before reacting in conversations. I check assumptions instead of just jumping to conclusions. I question where information comes from before believing it. I stay curious instead of judgmental, and I use mindfulness to stay focused and engaged. These habits have made my relationships, my decision making, and even my schoolwork better. Reflection. I gained a deeper understanding of another person's life through this project. It demonstrated to me how decisions and identities are shaped by life events. It enables me to examine my own behaviors and potential improvement areas. This task inspired me to establish deeper connections with those in my immediate vicinity. I'm so happy I got the chance to practice certain critical thinking tactics. One thing I learned from this course is that in order to enjoy the rewards, critical thinking needs to be used and practiced in a number of situations. Overall, I would say that this course helped me understand myself and my thinking patterns on a deeper level. It taught me how to slow down, be present, stay curious, and think more intentionally. I feel like I'm leaving this class as a more thoughtful, open-minded, and aware version of myself. This course didn't just teach me how to think critically, it taught me how to live more intentionally. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and that is it.